You're distracting. In a good way.
Oh. I just go through it now.
Yep.
All right, what's up, guys? How's everybody doing?
Good morning.
Good. Yeah, make sure I know how to work this real quick. Where would I see if they can hear me or not on here?
Just, you can just ask them. Just ask.
Can you hear me now?
Can you guys hear me on Zoom? All right, here.
Hey, morning.
My one person.
Like to have. Yeah, just ask Brian if he can hear us.
Brian, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, no, you just put, yeah.
Cool, awesome. All right, guys, thanks for coming into the workshop. This is gonna be focused around going into the end of the year. How can we work on getting ourselves out of a rut we may be in? Finding motivation going into 2025. We're gonna talk a little bit about why ruts happen. You could call it burnout. Why does burnout occur? That's a common word this time of the year in all industries. I work with clients from real estate, the whole way through to consulting. And I've been hearing the word a lot, burnout. And I want to talk through what it is, what does it show up like? It's different for everyone. What are some of the potential causes of it? Then we're gonna go through what can we do to try and either avoid it on the front end, or once we start experiencing burnout, what can we do to try and remedy it over time? Because that's sort of the hardest part. Once you're in the hole, how do you climb out of it, right? So a little bit about myself. My name is Kyle Potter. I'm the founder of a coaching company upstairs called Statera Success Systems. My background, I'm a licensed agent. I've been with KW Keystone now for about 2 years. And while I was an agent, I also ran the entire sales funnel for Integrity First Home Buyers. I'm sure you guys, some of you guys are familiar with them. They're a big investment company here in New York. Also happens to be one of the largest in the United States. We did about 500 transactions a year. And I ran everything from marketing through to transaction coordination, had about 40 direct reports, team of 4 or 5 leaders that worked with me. And I took everything that I learned from my time in Integrity First, what worked, what didn't, what did people need to hear as far as coaching, what works as a leader, how do we build teams, how do we build systems. And now I want to teach agents and entrepreneurs how to do that for themselves. Before we start really getting into it, I want to talk through when I converted this to a PDF, some of the text got messed up. I apologize. Who here has experienced a feeling of being burnt out? A lot of us. I know I certainly have. If you haven't felt a feeling of being burnt out, who here has felt a nagging lack of motivation at times? Right. I promise I'm not going to call on you a whole lot, but who'd be willing to speak up and just describe what that feels like for them in their personal life? How does it show up? How does it manifest?
The lack of motivation part?
Either one. How does it show up? What are some of the, how do we know that we're feeling burnout or that we're feeling a lack of motivation?
Lack of desire to want to get up in the morning starts there.
Yeah,
Not wanting to put your all into it.
that's the worst. Like when you know that you're talented at something and you just can't get off the couch. For me, when I got laid off from the car dealership 4 or 5 years ago and I decided to get into real estate, that's how it showed up for me. I just felt like I had an anchor attached to me and I was having trouble getting off the couch and getting started. I knew that I was a talented leader, talented salesperson. I knew I could have success. I think somebody's trying to drop something off.
Okay.
But that's, I felt like it was being robbed from me from this burnout and this feeling of lack of motivation. So that sent me on this journey of figuring out why does it happen? As entrepreneurs, as successful salespeople, as agents, why does it pop up in our life? That's what I want to talk through a little bit today. Come on. There we go. So what causes it? In my experience working with entrepreneurs and agents alike, it normally shows up due to a lack of boundaries, a need for perfectionism. I certainly struggle with this one. A lack of delegation, maybe systems for, passing off those low value tasks to other folks that can handle them, whether it's an EA or BA, buyer's agent, junior listing agent, financial pressure, either from home or from business. Unrealistic expectations. This is one that we all put on ourselves, I think, at times. And I think this one shows up most importantly for me is poor work-life balance. I named my company Statera Success Systems because it's Latin for balance. It's hugely important to me to help agents and entrepreneurs figure out how can we marry success at work with success at home. And that looks different to everybody, obviously. And the last two, lack of clear goals and vision and rapid scaling, which can be a good thing, but that can also lead to growing pains. So these are some of the common ways that they show up. I want to talk through today, how do we identify them? And when we do identify them, what can we do to try and work through them? So how can we prevent it? How can we remedy burnout? What I've come up with is 3 steps, and within each of these 3 steps, there's a bunch of subcategories that we can go into, but in general, we can prevent or remedy burnout by number 1, being humble enough to audit ourselves and our year, especially this time of the year, looking back through the first 3 quarters and understanding what were the results, what were the outcomes, what were the inputs that led to those outcomes, what were the relationships we had, what were some of the activities that we were working on that we maybe shouldn't have been working on. And it requires a level of humility that's really hard for people, but that's where we have to start. We have to make a commitment to saying, hey, I probably didn't have everything perfect, right? Taking the time to go back through your year and understand what could we learn from it? What were the successes that we can build on for 2025? And what are maybe the areas of opportunity for us to improve upon going into the new year? Second step, once we've taken a long, hard look at our year and we understand what we need to do, or what we need to continue doing, what we need to stop doing, we need to go through an exercise, which I'm going to show you guys today, to make sure that the work that we continue doing is in alignment with what we're passionate about and what we're skilled at. A big reason that entrepreneurs reach a barrier, they hit that burnout, is because they end up working on tasks that are no longer in alignment with who they are as a person or the type of work that they want to do, and most importantly, what they're skilled at. If you ask yourself, what do you enjoy doing? What are you good at? And then you look at all the activities throughout your day, I'm sure there's a lot of things that show up on that list that either are not in alignment with what you're good at or what you enjoy doing. So we want to make sure that the activities that are left over after this process are in alignment with who we are, what we enjoy doing. Then finally, once we go through that exercise to make sure that the activities that are left on our plate are in alignment, we need to act. And this is where, funny enough, people stop. They go through the work, they read the books, they come to workshops like this, they watch the podcasts and the videos, and they get all the great ideas. And then when it comes time for rubber to meet the road, they tend to stop. So I put ACT on here because I think it's important to develop a plan to build sustainable success. It's one thing to do it. I feel like anybody can be passionate for a week or 2 weeks. We see it all the time with like 75 hard around this time of the year. People are doing like New Year's resolutions. When it comes to revamping your business and climbing out of a hole, who wants to go right back into it 3 weeks later? Nobody, right? So my goal for you through this workshop today and ongoing trainings in the future would be to show you how to build a sustainable system for success, so that when you do finally go through this process and you decide to act on the activities that are in alignment with who you are and what you're good at, you can stay out of the hole and we can avoid going back into burnout in the future. Any questions about the 3 steps? Audit, align, or act? What's up, Kevin?
Do you feel like the New Year's resolution, a lot of them will pick that goal or that thing because they align with it, but they never audited and then they never put in a plan to act on it on top of that too?
100%. I think anytime an action that we take ends up fizzling out is because you're missing one of the components, right? First of all, we need to take a look through the audit process and say, is that something that still belongs on my plate? You know, can we delegate it? Can we delete it? Can we automate it? We're going to talk through those here in a little bit, those 3 steps. Does it belong on the plate in the first place? Is it beneficial to my business? Does it contribute to my success, or is it a hindrance? If it's not in alignment with who you are, which you'll find, especially as you start to scale, there's a lot of tasks that you may want to delegate, but you're scared, whether it's the cost or you feel like, man, I just want to do it myself. If you want to get done right, do it yourself, right? But they're not in alignment with what you're good at, what you enjoy. I know for me, I'm more of like the process and systems guy. I'm not like speaking is not my favorite thing to do. Going to like a bar and having to make new friends isn't my favorite thing to do. I'm more introverted. So for me in my business, I like to outsource and delegate marketing and sales, and I focus on the nerdy stuff sort of behind the scenes. How can I build it out and create systems? So love that question. Any other questions around the 3 steps here before we get going? Awesome. Got the spinning wheel of death here, Ryan.
No, you just gotta go right over right there.
Okay,
Sweet spot.
step 1. Audit. So this, in my opinion, if you could do one of these 3, this is the one that'll get you the most bang for your buck. A lot of people, when they go back through their year, they're gonna look at how do we make out with our listings? How do we make out with total transactions? What was our volume? They're gonna look at the numbers, right? And when you work with a MAPS coach, that's what they'll walk you through. You know, they'll say, what commitments did we make? How do we make out? You know, what behaviors can we change? What activities can we change? You need to run that process, not just for your business, but for your life as well. Because if you think about why you want to have, 70 transactions or 15 million, whatever the goals are, it's for a reason, right? We all have a why, we all have a reason, and that reason is going to drive us to do certain activities. Whether it's getting into real estate in the first place, whether it's financial, if you want to, be social and have a career where it's flexible, whatever the activities would be, you're going to have reasons, and you need to audit what those reasons are. What relationships have you built throughout the year that are conducive to your success, or maybe dragging you down a little bit? And then finally, are your goals realistic? Have we set goals that are really attainable for you at this stage in your career? So as you go through this audit, you want to start macro, really zoomed out, look at our year. How do we make out work and life wise, right? Professionally, how did we land on those goals that we set at the beginning of the year? And personally, who's in our life right now that is contributing to our success, is not contributing to our success, and were our goals realistic in the first place? A really nice tool that I would love to offer you guys, I actually have it as a free download at the end of the presentation. This is what's known as a time and energy audit here on the right. If you scan the QR code at the end, you'll be able to download this. This is from Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. Exercise I highly recommend everyone going through. Once you look at your year, get more granular, start looking at your day and your week. And what this will do is you'll list all the tasks that you do throughout your day, and you will assign a dollar value to them. Is it high dollar, low dollar, meaning does it contribute highly to your revenue, or does it contribute maybe not at all? And then secondly, you'll highlight it. Red will be it's a task that took energy from you that you really didn't enjoy. Green, when you highlight it, it'll be a task that gave you energy. And ideally, what we're gonna start to see on this audit, hopefully, is a lot of high dollar sign green activities. Those are the ones that we want to keep. Those are activities that are in your 20%. If you think in terms of Pareto principle, you're gonna get 80% of your result from 20% of your activities. Those are the activities that we want to keep for sure. Anything that is green, gave you energy, and is high dollar sign should stay in your control. You're also gonna probably see some stuff start popping out on the page that is red, that you didn't really enjoy, that took energy from you, and also is low dollar sign. The first thing you should do after this exercise is find a way to get those things off your plate. Whether it's hiring a VA, whether it's coming up with a piece of technology that can help you do it, whether it's something that can be deleted, which again, I think is probably the most valuable thing that you can do, is really looking at the activities you were involved in and say, does it even belong? Is it something you need to be doing? The 3-step process that I like to use here, it's like the acronym DAD is how I describe it. What can we delete? What can we automate? And what can we delegate? So again, time and energy audit, we're looking for things that pop out that gave us energy, high value, things that pop out on the page that took energy and are low value. And that's really going to show you as you move forward into the planning stage for next year, what are the activities you should continue focusing on? And what are the activities we should look to delegate away? Any questions on the time and energy audit or the process of going through your year and taking a look at our activities?
I'm good.
Just like breathing heavy?
I'm just thinking about something that makes it there, that's why.
I know when I went through this type of presentation, I felt like when the guy was talking about this, did all that this year.
What would you say is a common thing that people spend too much time on that tends to get removed or should get removed?
So it's gonna be custom for everybody. There's two factors. Number one, what level of business are you at? When we start out, it's really hard to immediately delegate stuff. You have to sort of bite the bullet and you're gonna be the entire business. When you get to a point where you look at your finances and there's room, the budget model and the MREA is great for this. They'll tell you, what the threshold should be when you can bring staffing on. I think you just need to have an honest conversation with yourself. Should you still be doing some of those activities if you're at those thresholds where you can afford to bring support staff on? And in that case, it's gonna be like the listing prep, it's gonna be ordering signs, it's gonna be the administrative tasks, driving back and forth, walking properties. There's gonna be things that you can delegate to someone else depending upon the scale of your team. The other thing is gonna depend on what you enjoy, what activities brings you energy, right? That's gonna show up on the time and energy audit, but for Lindsay or for Phil or for Ryan, it may be completely different types of activities than it is for me. And I think that's why this is very independent. And when you go through it, it's not something where I can just say, hey, delegate these 6 activities. It's gotta be a process that you go through to understand unique to you. What do you enjoy? What gives you energy? What are you good at? And what level of business are you at? Any other questions? Too far over. Oh, yeah. Cool. Step 2. So now we've taken a look at our year. We understand now what we worked on that worked, what we worked on maybe that didn't get us the results that we were hoping for. We understand what relationships are beneficial, maybe what relationships we need to move on from. Now we're going to start to look at aligning those activities that stood out in that audit to ourselves. And I put on here just a quick little tidbit. We show up as our best and true self when our actions are in alignment with our character, our purpose, and our core competencies. Character, purpose, core competencies. When you can work on activities that are sort of in the middle of that Venn diagram, that's when you will get yourself out of the hole. You'll fight through the burnout. Ideally, avoid it to begin with. We're about to start a new year. I think if you could use some of these strategies, you'll probably avoid that feeling of being in a rut to begin with. Really good tool that I like to use within my coaching company is the Life Plan one-pager. This is actually a tool that I got through some coaching that I received, and I sort of modified it and adapted it to our company here at KW and what we work on as agents. But there's a couple boxes that we go through. Number one, we work through an exercise where we identify what are your core values? What is important to you as a person? What's important to you as an agent inside your business? And these are going to be sort of our defining principles, right? Like for me, it's balance, transparency, integrity. It may be mastery, excellence. There's a bunch of words out there. I go through an exercise, Kate Brocious and I just did it the other day. We'll spread 100 cards out here on the table and we'll go through an exercise where we whittle it down to 5 over the course of an hour. Understanding what's important to you is super, super important to the rest of the process. Next, we're going to look at what our core competencies are. And what this means is, what are we good at? What are we good at? Everybody's going to be different, right? Kev, I know, makes 100 calls a day. That's incredible. I can guarantee you that I wouldn't be caught dead doing 100 calls. It's just not my locker. But I enjoy sitting down and making flow charts and building out processes and figuring a way to integrate technology. There's probably a lot of people here that makes you want to bang your head against a wall. Everyone's going to be uniquely skilled, uniquely qualified in different areas. So listing out what are the things that we are uniquely gifted at so that we can build upon this intersection of these 3 things: our character, our core competency, and our purpose. So once we understand what we're good at, we understand what we believe in, what's important to us, this is the real fun one, figuring out what your purpose is. This is the why that I mentioned earlier. Why are we still doing it? Bob and I talked a little bit about this when we went away for ALC. You said that, you know, you are working towards like retirement, you have these goals and these things you want to do. Why am I still doing it? I have 2 young kids and a wife. I want to travel the world. We all have a why and a purpose. And typically there's 2 types of purpose that I want you guys to focus on. I don't know if you can see it up here, but there's practical and there's philosophical. Practical purpose is going to be a financial driver. So this is going to be like, what's your number? Most people it's retirement. Some people it could be more micro, like I want to go study abroad for 6 years and I'm working towards a certain number. What is your practical purpose? And that's going to be a financial driver. For me, it's $7 million. That's what I'm working towards before I retire. That's what I feel I need to have the quality of life in retirement for me and my family. It was very easy for me to come up with it. And again, in our coaching, I'll show you how to go through, a very simple process, mathematical equation to figure out what that number is for you if you don't have a financial advisor and you don't understand what that retirement number is. Philosophical, this is going to be a little bit more existential, a little bit more foo-foo. It's going to be more romantic, I guess you could say. It's like your big why, right? In KW language, as Gary Keller says, what's your big why? For me, I'll just share mine with you. I want to create 200 new leaders before I retire. There's just a number that I picked that felt reasonable. I'm very passionate about building people up and inspiring folks to grow their skill sets and then for them to develop other leaders. And my goal would be to create 200 new leaders before I retire. Within that, it's going to force me to be my best self all the time. It's going to force me to, have clients and give back to the community and seek out activities that support that. So your purpose, practical, philosophical, your core values, what do you believe in, what do you stand for, and your core competencies, what are you uniquely gifted at? The intersection of those 3 things are going to be where you're going to have the greatest success. Any questions about finding alignment or working through a 1-page life plan? Again, something that I share with everybody at the end of this. If you scan the QR code, this document will be on there for you guys to fill out as well. All right, this one's actually pretty straightforward. I don't really need the text. This is the ACT stage. This is where I said earlier, a lot of people will go through these exercises because they make you feel good. You start thinking about like, who am I as a person? What do I believe in? What's that number? It's really exciting to see multiple millions on a paper. But when it comes time to actually figuring out which activities do we need to do to get there, that's where a lot of folks fall short. We want to make sure that as we go through this process, the activities that we pick and the plan that we come up with is sustainable. I can't stress that enough. It has to be sustainable so that we can carry it throughout the year. If we go into January and we feel good, and we're like, man, that workshop was great. I'm going to recommend some books to you. You're going to read them. You're going to love them. And then we get to March and the year is starting to feel like, holy shit, what did I get myself into? We need to have a plan that will help us fight through that on its own, a system that we developed that doesn't allow us to get into our own head. big thing that I love doing. I have these up in my office, happy to give them to anybody that wants to work together going forward. This is a page for the full focus planner. It's a planner and journal system by Michael Hyatt. You can buy them on Amazon, they're fantastic. What it does is it takes everything we just talked about and it puts it into very actionable steps. You're gonna detail out each goal that you set for yourself throughout the year. It's gonna have the first 3 things you need to do. It's gonna have the reasons for doing it. You're gonna create an incentive, like a reward for yourself if you get those goals done. Highly recommend having some sort of tool like the full focus planner, but it can be as simple as writing out a list. It doesn't have to be a fancy planner. Creating a system for yourself, ideally split out by quarter. You can't do it all at once, right? So we need to come up with a system where we can strategically attack these goals one by one. On the 1-page life plan, it's gonna have on there 10-year, 3-year, 1-year goals, and then it's gonna boil it down to quarterly priorities. Ideally, what we do is we take those quarterly priorities, and this is what we write on the paper, and we say, hey, if my quarterly priority is I want to lose 30 pounds, well, I need to make sure that I'm removing junk food from the house. I need to make sure that I'm exercising. I need to make sure that I'm tracking my calories ideally. If it's, I want to get 10 listings this quarter. Okay, what income producing activities do we need to do? How much lead gen do we need? Where do we need to market? You can decide what your quarterly goal is, but we need to reverse engineer that back to very actionable steps. I think that's where a lot of people fail is they have the goals and they never whittle that down from like, all right, I want to achieve this year to what do I need to work on this month, this week, and today. Any questions about taking those goals that we come up with and whittling them down into actionable steps? The planner's great. It's guided, and there's a ton of them out there if you don't want to use the one that I recommend, but having some sort of system where it's not you having to figure it all out on your own, and it's like a guided exercise, in my experience, has been, a little bit easier. But even if it is like a paper, like I said, where you're just writing out, what do I need to do today that rolls up into success this month, that rolls up into success this quarter and this year.
I think this is that part is oftentimes over, like you overthink it, right? So, you and I sat down together last week and she has her big yearly goal, but then it don't know the action steps of getting there.
Yep.
To where we were able to break that down into what her daily task would be, and I gave you homework. So
Yes.
you're gonna be thinking about that. But you have to do that in order to know what you need to be doing every single day to achieve that big.
100%, and it's much easier to hold yourself accountable to like 1 or 2 smaller actions than it is to hold accountability to like this big esoteric vision that you set 6 months ago. That's where the burnout starts to happen. You get into the middle of the year and you encounter some roadblocks or some barriers, and it's like, shit, you lose that motivation, you lose the reason that you made the goal in the first place. Having it all documented that you can reference back to, and then hold yourself accountable to just daily actions is much easier. It's much more palatable for most people.
Well, to that point, like the burnout, but the reason why we're doing this class is because we're heading into that holiday season.
Mhm.
The burnout's here because we just grinded all year, or you didn't grind enough in the first half, realized you were behind, and then went full force starting June on
Yep.
and burnt yourself down. Now, if you just would have followed the daily tasks or the weekly, you would have been able to even it out efficiently, and then you wouldn't have felt what you're feeling perhaps today.
Yeah, ideally, guys, if you can implement this type of system that we're talking about, you don't ever have burnout. It just doesn't happen, it doesn't occur, because you're very clear of what you're good at, what activities you need to be focusing on, what your purpose is. Yeah, you've written out your goals, you're holding yourself accountable to daily and weekly goals instead of quarterly and yearly. It's much more palatable, again, and easy to track and hold yourself accountable to going forward. Any other thoughts or questions?
Just say, this reminds me of Jeremy's team, because it was very specific of, we want to sell this many listings this year, this many homes. So we need to have X amount of conversations a day.
Yep.
Certain amount of appointments per week, you're very specific with that. So it's not like, oh, I have to call 300 people this week. No, it's, okay, I have to call 20 people today. I have to call 20 people tomorrow. Like when you break it up into smaller pieces, it's so much more like not all on your shoulders at once.
Yeah, it's easier to manage. And they call them lead measures, right? Those are gonna be KPIs that we track, key performance indicators that are lead measures. If we hit, like Kev has this 100 call a day goal, he's done the math somewhere that if he does that many calls, he's gonna talk to this many people, which will lead to this many appointments, this many contracts, which will yield the volume that he's looking for, the units that he's looking for. That is much easier for himself to hold himself accountable to that than it is, hey, I need to hit 10 million or 12 million, whatever the goal is, right? Awesome. I want to spend some time now. I want to go through how we do this at Soterra Success Systems. How do we do this? What's it like working with us? I want to go through the program that we cooked up for you guys. Ryan and I have been working for months together now to come up with a system for KW agents in this building, not only at 50% of the cost that you would pay for my normal coaching or coaching anywhere else, but very specific to agents in the real estate world, right? I want to go through that really quickly, and then I have some free stuff for you guys here at the end. This is custom coaching for our KW Keystone family. Our objectives through working together are going to be to use a lot of the tools that we talked about today. We want to audit, we want to align, we want to act, but really what we're trying to do is reset and reframe. So what we want to do is work on our mindset and our attitude to make sure that we align our personal and professional lives with what energizes us and brings us joy. I call it the work before the work. Before we can get into learning a skill set and then implementing that skill set, we need to understand, is it even the right skill set to begin with? Are we in the right industry? Are we on the right team? Do we have the right relationships? That starts between your ears in terms of your mindset. From there, once we've created that alignment that we're talking about and your mindset is on point, we work into a very rigorous and well thought out and completely custom training program to scale your business. So we want to cultivate the skills, we want to create systems, we want to optimize your resource utilization, and ultimately we want to learn to leverage people, process, and technology so that you guys can focus on the things that make you happiest and that you're uniquely gifted at. 3 stages that we go through typically with this: mindset coaching with the purpose alignment. We're going to go into leadership coaching. This is something I'm very passionate about. Leadership is not just Ryan to us or me to an assistant. Leadership is omnipresent. You're leading yourself, you're leading each other, you're leading back up the chain of command for Ryan. We talk through what it means to be a good leader for yourself, for your family, for your peers, and ultimately for your business. Through this, we go through an empowerment phase where I'm going to help teach you guys the skills that you're looking for to fill in the gaps in your business. And then finally, we're going to go through operational coaching. This is the real boring stuff that's going to make you a lot of money. This is where we systematize everything so that we can get predictable, consistent results. This is the number 3 ACT phase from the previous slides. I offer one-on-one real estate agent coachings, fully customized one-on-one coaching plan for you guys here at KW Keystone. Again, 3 phases that we go through. Everything is in groups of 3. We do an onboarding and discovery process. That's normally 2 to 3 weeks. We spend a lot of time here in the realignment and skill building. And then finally, I teach you guys how to implement and scale. Typically, this program will cost $2,000 per person. That's pretty standard fee for this type of coaching. Ryan and I have agreed to do it for $1,000 a month for a team. Unlimited amount of people on the team. We'll do it for an entire team for $1,000 a month. Or if you're an individual looking for this type of coaching, I'm offering it for $500 per month. Some of the clients that we worked with. This slide is available to you guys at the end when you scan the QR code. It tells you a little bit more about me. These are the next steps. So if you decide to move forward at the end, there's another QR code here on the next slide that you can scan to schedule a call with me. This is non-commitment. It's a free coaching call. We're literally going to spend time trying to help you grow your business in 30 minutes. But ultimately, we're going to see if we're a good fit together and decide if it's something we want to move forward with. I am local here in the area. My family lives right down the road. I have an office upstairs. I'm very accessible. If we decide to move forward, I send you an invoice. You pay the invoice and we get started. It is a very simple process. Kate Brochus and I have been together now for a month. She's made a ton of progress. She seems to be really enjoying it. And these are the QR codes. If you guys are interested in any of the assets that we talk about today, so that would be the one-page life plan, that would be the time and energy audit, it'll be this entire proposal for coaching. That'll be here. And then if you want to schedule a free coaching call with me, feel free to scan the one on the left there, and that'll go right to my calendar where you can grab some time. I want to open it up. I'll leave this up here, but are there any questions that sort of popped up through this presentation, going through the thought exercise of like, shit, what do I need to work on? What do I need to audit for my year? What do we need to adjust for next year? I'm happy to spend the next few minutes here answering any questions that popped up.
I'd like to challenge everyone here that, and you don't have to speak about it unless you want to. but What is the first thing that you're gonna do to implement your audit? Like, whether it's putting in your calendar, like, what are you gonna do? The idea of this exercise was to break it down into a simple format that really just allows you to determine 2025. What do I wanna do to not feel the same way I possibly feel today? Or have felt in the past or at some point this year? And if we give you the tools, we give you the information, but if there's not an action step, then you'll probably just do it again next year. And we'll keep bringing these classes because we want to help you guys. Maybe one day it'll register and be like, oh, that's what that meant, or I remember taking that class. But make sure that you write down something that holds you accountable to actually putting this into plan. And Danny. I mean, wrap it up. You're on the spot.
Oh, Danny, I'm gonna say to Danny.
Yeah, I'll run you.
Danny, give us one thing from your year that you're gonna stop doing next year.
Oh,
That wasn't productive and didn't contribute to your success.
we put off the small stuff. Getting to know Kevin Warwick's been big in his like chase of 100 dials a day. I push off the small things that, as you do them over time, they equal up to big things, and I allow the big flashy things to take precedent, you know. what I
Yeah.
mean?
It's like the boring stuff, right? That's the
Yeah.
stuff that gets overlooked.
1000%.
That goes back to what we talked about, guys. You gotta have it broken down into actionable steps. They're much easier to digest when it's one or two activities a day instead of trying to do big flashy stuff like Danny mentioned.
Be intentional about it. Like if at the end of the week you didn't achieve any of the tasks that you said, how do you feel? Is that okay?
Terrible.
Is that okay? Is that acceptable to you? Then maybe you should reevaluate what your goal was or what you wanted to do about that. Because it didn't bring joy if you're not willing to do it.
I'll call on two people real quick, just to wrap up. Again, this is not necessarily to sell my services, but I want to go through and ask Danny and Lindsay. There are two people that I've coached in the past.
Hey, I didn't even see you over there.
I just want to maybe like have you guys share with the rest of the team how impactful those activities are when you go through and figure out, you know, which activities are in alignment with who you are, and then you get hyper focused on things that bring you joy and are high value. So whichever one of you want to go first.
Good.
Yeah, okay, so I have two things with that. So. Gotta think back, I think it was like. Before I had my son, so he's 9 months now, it was probably January time. Kyle was my leader, and it kind of got to the point where I was in operations at Integrity First. And it had a lot to do with like transaction coordination. And that was just, I didn't love that. I just felt like I had a bigger purpose elsewhere where we, similar to when I worked with Jeremy, like working with a smaller team and kind of helping them with like the day-to-day things versus like the transaction coordination. I didn't like the nitty-gritty little detail stuff. I wanted kind of like more of the product that we're putting out there. So we kind of went through an exercise where we went through my entire like task list of what I did every day and was very specific of like, I don't love this. I love this. This gives me energy, similar to exactly what he's saying. And from there, I was very fortunate that we kind of built out a position for me that was very in alignment with where I loved to do things, what I love to do, where I wanted to see myself go as well. Because I felt like if I stayed in that transaction operational role, that I was just gonna keep like driving down into a hole and like never feel useful or never feel like I was doing anything good for myself or for my family. And I felt like there was like a block there, like I was never gonna be able to like jump past it. Like there was no, the ceiling was there and I was never gonna be able to go above that. So I was very fortunate that we were able to create that, and I think that's super important too, like. When you're hiring somebody, you want them to be doing what they enjoy as well, like you don't want to continue to give them like all the little things that they don't enjoy. But you have that power to be able to create a position that they enjoy and that you enjoy as well, or you get power from. And then right now, I'm kind of going through a transition as well, where I'm gonna be home with my son more often. And I think I need to be very specific with time. So that's kind of where we get into like the audit. I need to figure out how much time I have every single day, every single week to be able to give to something else. Because every time that I give to something else, I'm taking away from my son.
Yeah.
So that is kind of the exercise I'm going through, like when Ryan asked that question, that's what I have to figure out right now. How much extra time do I have to give to something else? So that if I'm giving 5 hours a day that I don't have, you're gonna hit that roadblock right away and realize like you can't continue to do that. Who's gonna watch my son for 5 hours if it's not me? So that's.
I think that's important, like you start down that path of understanding which activities you should be working on and which activities you shouldn't, because anything you say yes to, something else you have to say no to, right? Danny, how about you? I know we went through a really important exercise maybe 6 months ago, sort of switch positions with you and change direction. How impactful has that been?
Been a life changer. I was, me and Kyle were both directors on the board of directors over at Integrity First. And like, what more could you ask for, being like single dad with custody of my daughters, like in my early 30s, on the board of directors at like a successful company, but it just wasn't like feeding who I am as a person, and I just didn't really love it. And like, we just went through a very direct exercise, like as friends and as colleagues, of like just working through what would be more of a fit. And it like not only helped push me over the edge to make a big leap into like a sales type of role, which is just who I am as a person. Like something that I probably would have pushed off for a long time, or at least until I like wasn't succeeding and forced into it type of thing. And like, it was a complete 180 for my career. I mean, it's been my career there. It's been a complete 180. I love it. I couldn't be more successful. And then not only like I run a couple of businesses outside of there, and it's caused me to make changes in those businesses, even extremes to the point of like kind of sacking up and hiring assistant and outsourcing some of the delegation of the business that was originally on my plate that I wouldn't have probably done otherwise. I'd have just white knuckled it until I popped. So like, you really helped me kind of like assess, like you said, what feeds my soul and what I love, like what's my 20%.
Yeah.
And then like having the bravery to like outsource that and trust the process.
Yeah. So guys, whether it's me or somebody else or on your own, this work is super important, because these are two people that were burnt out and they were going down paths where they were no longer going to be with the company. And we're able to go through an exercise and figure out, what do they enjoy? What are they good at? What are they passionate about? And align their time with those types of activities. Now they're both thriving. So we can do the same thing for you. You can do it for yourself. You can find another coach. If you leave today, take one thing away, spend some time thinking about your year. What should you be working on? What are you passionate about? What are you good at? And make sure going into 2025, you focus exclusively on those activities. That's all I got. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Any ahas or feedback for Kyle?
Make sure my damn slideshow looks better.
When did you start?
Like, what do you mean? Start the slideshow?
I thought you started at 10:30. That's why I was thinking.
Oh, yeah. We started today at 10.
I had it at
expected you to be
10:30.
late, though.
That's my bad. Yeah, that's my bad. I wouldn't have made it at 10 anyway. So.
Yeah.
That sucks. I thought he started at 10:30.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Thank you.
Dude, the undial thing that you've been on.
Yeah,